Question from the comments. Joey, what are some of the worst natural disasters in Canadian history? We'll look at some of that today. Hit like, share, subscribe. Welcome to Caribou Weather Dude YouTube channel. There it is. This is bad news. My God.
Falling out right now.
Anything could happen. Get on! Wow. I'll watch the video later. They dry mop in this. Well, I don't have to search too hard to find the answers because some great professionals have already put together this interactive map and display and series of articles on and images on what some of the worst natural disasters are in Canada. So Mangley Janney, Max Steele, and Cohen Botting, some very reputable names in the weather community, and we're going to look at their article in reference to that. Partly, you know, I know it's on the outside kind of lazy video making on my part to just simply reference a website that already exists. However, one of the points in this video exercise for myself as well is to work on this new software and get better and better at using it. So in that case, you know, now we have something that I can just use as a template to kind of work off of and answer your question at the same time and improve on my video making skills. So here we go. The worst natural disasters in Canadian history. An easy one to start with would be the wildfires of 2023. Which began very early. For my crew, we were called up to Fort St. John, I believe, on the 9th of May that year, I think is when we arrived there. And already we had a fire that came screaming across the Alberta border and had torched a number of homes and dwellings in the piece. And while we were there, fires started lighting off in Alberta. We could see them in the distance, and the Donnie Creek fire lit off. We did end up at the Donnie Creek fire for a couple of days in that deployment. I ended up coming back to the Donnie Creek fire in September of that year. And what happened there, as you've seen in some of my videos, a series of very active fire conditions came with high wind speeds and very dry air, very dry humidity, very low humidity. In late September, when it was now officially fall, more hectares burned in one day in Canada than have ever been burned in Canadian history. And that wasn't in the height of summer. That was in September 23rd, I believe it was. And we were at the Donnie, and I'm here to tell you it was ripping and raging and rocking. So in late April, British Columbia and Alberta suffered from the worst spread of natural wildfires. 29,000 residents would have to evacuate. By May 7th, Alberta had 108 active fires in the region. The year 2023 would be record-breaking. This included the Donnie Creek fire I was at. This is the worst wildfire of them all in the 2023 season. It burned up 2,400 square kilometers of land. It was absolutely huge, the Donnie Creek fire. Choked a lot of the continent out at different times, and people with very different kinds of health were impacted with their health. And you can see the spread of the smoke through these regions. So it was quite significant. We also had fires in Scotch Creek and Kelowna with major losses of property in British Columbia. It was a wildfire season to remember. And the next year started off, because we didn't get the precipitation over the winter, almost immediately back into the fire spread. We were at fires on April 20th in 2024, and that was 2023 was my earliest season ever, and then 2024 was my earliest season ever. It was just bam, bam, bam. And we'll take into consideration that we had the 4 boys from Tomahawk crew. My boys get killed on the highway. We had Devin, who was killed by a tree. We had a guy in Fort St. John who was killed when his quad went off the trail, and then ministry shut down quad use for everybody, but only a few people on the fire line for the rest of that season, I guess insurance purposes or whatever the fact was. And then there was a death in Northwest Territories. So it was a very, very hard season, took a lot of toll on fire crews in general. And I don't think Canadian fire crews are used to having that kind of thing in our wildfire season. We've managed to go a long time without losing people in the line of battle. An easy one to look at for a runner-up mention would be the Fort McMurray wildfire. When you have the spring come and you have all this dead, dry grass out there and you have dry conditions, sometimes you have an early start to fire season. Alberta tends to have its worst fires early in the year, unlike BC, which tends to have them more later in the year. It was pretty obvious when this fire first started in the way that prevailing winds go. I mean, I've learned a lot about wildfires since this time, but it was obvious to me that there was a big concern and that people needed to get out of that town right away. And for whatever reason, I'm not saying it was bumbled, but because we haven't had any experience like this, I think in Canada, quite like this, no one was quite ready for what it would entail to have to hightail it out of Fort McMurray just on a dime, right? So it was a incredibly explosive situation. People were running tens of thousands on highways that were choked in flames, running for their lives. The evacuation order came early. The wildfire, though, kept burning, and it was up to 2,600 hectares at this point. The winter conditions didn't come on side. It wasn't looking good. 80,000 people, like I say, were evacuated. Buildings were destroyed. Roads were wrecked. 2 people lost their lives, maybe not caused by the fire, but by collision on the highway. In total, that would wreak havoc in the area that suffered over $3.5 billion worth of damage in the end. On August 2nd, 2016, the wildfires would come to the end of its reign in the region with 539,000 hectares burned. Some estimates are that the fire cost more than $10 billion in the end, by the time you're done fighting it, and the loss of all the properties. Next on the list is one we've covered on this channel before, and I would implore you to go find the video on this topic, the Regina Cyclone. The Regina Cyclone was the worst natural disaster in terms of a single thunderstorm in Canadian history for sure. 28 people were killed, 300 were hospitalized, even though it's not the worst category. It hit directly into Regina on June 30th, 1912 at 4:50 p.m. 11 kilometers south of the city is where it first touched down. There's no information about how many people evacuated due to how long ago this happened. I don't think people knew it was coming. The tornado would reach the town of Regina. It ripped through thousands of buildings and homes and would claim the lives of 28 people, injure 300 more, and left 2,500 temporarily homeless. 200 businesses were destroyed. It cost about $1.2 million in damages at the time, which is about $30 million in today's dollars. Honorable mention in here would be the Edmonton tornado. It's ranked category EF4 as well. There's only been one EF5 in Canadian history, or F5, and that was in Manitoba in 2007, I do believe. On July 31st, 1987, a large EF4 tornado touched down east of Edmonton, Alberta, called Black Friday because the skies were very dark and gloomy. The tornado would reach wind speeds of up to 418 kilometers an hour and be 1.3 kilometers wide. The tornado would form south of Edmonton and shred through the eastern part of the city. It lasted for more than an hour and went 30 kilometers before dying northeast of the city. Unfortunately, 27 people were killed by this tornado. 300 were injured and more than 300 homes were destroyed. It totaled $332 million in damages at the time. Next on the list is the March blizzard, known as the Ides of March, the worst Canadian blizzard ever, probably. Within 7 hours, 72 people would die, and 100-kilometer-an-hour wind speeds and minus 45-degree weather would grip through Saskatchewan and Manitoba. The Ides of March was devastating for the people in the area. These minus 45 temperatures struck the area and killed 72 people due to not being prepared and not having the proper equipment to withstand 100-kilometer-an-hour winds and sub-zero weather that took over the areas of Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Minnesota, and North Dakota. The Ides occurred in 1941 on March 15th. As everyone was preparing for spring and the end of winter, this tragedy struck. It was very sudden. It was a blizzard called an Alberta Clipper. It advanced so fast that thousands of people were left stranded. Residents of the two provinces and two states saw the sun out even during the chilly weather. The weather forecast never mentioned any kind of blizzard warning, so everyone took it as an advantage to enjoy the outdoors. You may be asking, what is an Alberta Clipper? According to Wikipedia, it's a low-pressure system that's fast-moving that comes from the province of Alberta. The formation occurs on the arrival of a Pacific low-pressure system on the west coast. The winds blow southeastward towards the east coast. In many places, temperatures dropped by over 20 degrees. Not very long before the storm started, the local meteorologist stated reports of high winds. Even with this warning, people of the area didn't bother to care. They said they were used to this and there was nothing bad was going to happen. Does that not sound familiar, everybody? But they would later regret that because the massive blizzard hit. In 7 hours, and 72 people died. Thanks to the History Guy on YouTube for some of that information. Got a couple honorable mentions in the blizzard category. The 2018 Southern Ontario storm caused thousands of collisions and a 50-car pileup near Barrie. The Great Toronto Snowstorm of 44 poured 57 centimeters of snow into the city, causing 21 people to die. Some of these were caused by people overworking the heart when shoveling their way out of the snow. The storm of the century, Quebec 1971, dumped almost a meter of snow with huge wind gusts of 100 kilometers an hour plus. 12 people died in this storm, and there was a total of 500,000 truckloads of snow that had to be carried out of the city. Roads were unusable and very icy. Then there's the blizzard of 1999 in southern Ontario. In the span of 2 weeks, more than a meter of snow had fallen in areas like Toronto. I was there. And other urban cities in the area. Flights were canceled. Transit was shut down. We were absolutely buried. I was in Hamilton and University at the time, and we were absolutely buried by this storm. It was unbelievable how much snow came down. Hurricanes. There was a hurricane in Newfoundland back in 1775. At least we think there was. It was so bad, and thousands of people died because of this storm. So it was most likely a hurricane. The Newfoundland hurricane happened on September 9th when a violent stroke of fast winds and storm-like gusts were being noticed by some people. It was noted how a considerable number of boats and crew members have gone completely missing. It was also described that many ships' vessels were found washed up on the shore. When this hurricane happened, the Revolutionary War was still going on in the 13 colonies, so it was very bad for the British because now they had to spend millions of dollars to support this disaster. The British were heavily in debt at the time. You can see the track of the storm here on this approximation towards Newfoundland. This didn't mean the British were the only ones, though, that suffered. The 13 colonies took a hit from the hurricane as well. They renamed it the Hurricane of Independence. The storm went on up the north, along the east coast of North America, like we've been seeing some of these ones do just recently, some of these mid-latitude cyclones. This Newfoundland hurricane was the worst fatality count in Canadian history. 4,000 people are known to have died from drowning or other reasons that can be attributed to this hurricane. Maybe 120 plus people would die in North Carolina. The disaster was costly for the British because they were dealing with the war. And they just want to give credit to Wikipedia, Canadian Encyclopedia, Reader's Digest, CBC News, Weather Network, Pinterest, YouTube, and a bunch of other sources that helped them make this compilation ArcGIS story map. Really well done, everybody. Really well done. Well, that's what I got for now. We will have a forecast out for you tonight, so do stick around. Keep tuned in to Joey on the Caribou Weather YouTube channel. We'll have British Columbia weather this week coming at you sometime this evening for absolute sure. Okay, that's it. Bye now.